This could genuinely be the race of the season.
Welcome back to the latest edition of The Jump Show, and I was not here last week to celebrate and wave my hands with joy about the fact we've now reached 3,000 subscribers, which is tremendous news, so thank you so much for continuously supporting us. It means the world, and to hit that 3,000 is no mean feat for a channel like us, so we are absolutely delighted. Thank you so much. And if you would be so kind, if you do like this video this week, please do remember to like it. We'd love to reach 200. That would be a good target, I think, for this edition, in which we aren't covering any Premier racing this weekend because there isn't any over the jumps. So it's going to be a bit of a chit chat about some of the big races Ante-Post that are coming up in the next couple of months. And most of the chit chat won't be tips in themselves. It'll be just our musings and our thoughts about some of these big races and what we have to look forward to, who might turn up, and indeed who might win. Okay, alongside Dan and Jake as ever. Jake, come to you first. How are things? How was Chepstow last week?
Chepstow was really nice actually. I think the Friday was probably the better day of the two. Myself and Dan were able to have a few beers. We stayed the night that night, and yeah, we went into Chepstow town centre. I think the only issue with Chepstow really is that there's absolutely zero taxis or Ubers. So we ended up being stranded in the middle of Chepstow, far from our hotel, which wasn't ideal. But yeah, I mean, we found a lovely pub, had a lovely Indian, had a lovely time at the races, and then unfortunately, it went a little bit downhill on Saturday, didn't it, with the ground drying up and plenty of non-runners. But yeah, a very enjoyable weekend and whetted the appetite for the jump season ahead, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Once you kind of go past Bristol and Bath and you head that way, the amount of Ubers definitely becomes less the further
Yeah.
you get. Yeah, I think by the time you get to Pontypool and Pontypridd, there aren't too many around. Dan, you were also at Chepstow, weren't you? What did you make of it?
Yeah, not my finest moment going into basically every pub that had the lights on, begging any kind of local potentially to ring a taxi to get us home because it was looking bleak for an hour or two there in the middle of Chepstow with a 3 hour potential walk back to the hotel. But by hook or by crook, we made it back, and it was an eventful evening anyway. And the Saturday we were definitely feeling worse for wears. But my first time to Chepstow, I actually quite like the track. It's quite a scenic home straight. You don't get to see much else thereafter. Obviously, you are kind of taking a bit of a chance in terms of the weather. It seems to be either way too dry or it's torrential rain. There seems to be no in between with Chepstow. I think at the minute, I think we're all just begging for a bit of rain everywhere.
First up, we need to talk about horses to follow, or at least horses that have caught our eye over the last week or so. Notable performances, put it that way. And there was plenty of racing at Chepstow to get stuck into. So back to you, Dan. What are you going to go with for this week?
Yeah, I'll go to the Silver Trophy. I guess what would have definitely been the feature race. I guess the Welsh Champion Hurdle's now taken over that mantle to a certain extent on the weekend. But a mare I love, and a mare I know I've spoken to Jake a lot about, is Take No Chances. Oh, she was a proper tough, improving sort last season over 2.5 miles. And I remember before she won an Ascot, I was saying to Jake, God, she'd have a lovely profile for a Coral Cup. And she goes and beat Cargies like under a penalty. And there was that. She ended up running in the Mares Hurdle, placed in that. Ultimately, she isn't out and out grade one class. That's just, she's not that. But she ran off 146 at the weekend with a £7 claimer on, ran a perfectly admirable race, as she often does, got dropped a pound. They've mentioned going to Wetherby for the listed race she won last year. Now, Katira has kind of followed a very similar path in that she was an improving sort, then going into the next season. She was basically below par for the entire year and then bolted up in the Aintree handicap right at the end of the season. In an ideal world, I'd quite like to see a similar campaign for Take No Chances of just a few like little below par runs, and come the Coral Cup, come Aintree, we're going to have a big handicap in her. The Skeltons would know exactly how to do that. But either way, I'd be keeping a keen eye on her because she'll need to come down a few pounds, but I don't think she's done winning just yet.
Yeah, I mean, she's always been a mare that I've quite liked, I have to say. But glad to see you've got a few targets on the agenda there. Some proper jumps aficionado knowledge there, I have to say. And it's good to see. It's good to be back on the jump show after, I've only had a couple of weeks on it so far, and it's just nice to be listening to such top quality advice.
It's because you're Kempton on the all weather most times when we try to record. They're still dragging you off flat mode.
Yeah, and do you know what it is? Do you know what I will say? It's very difficult to switch. I'm finding it the older I get, the harder transition from flat to jump. So I get to October, I'm like, oh, I literally don't remember any horses. So you need to get that refresher session, and then now I've got the refresher session in, I'm starting to get back into it. So that's good. And
Good
with
man.
that in mind, actually, I've got my own horse in the last week or so to put forward for one to follow. And it's not the most, I mean, it's fairly obvious, I would say, given how impressive he was when he won. But it was the bumper on Sunday. Black Eddie did it really well, I thought. And there were some highly touted Skelton Nichols horses in behind. The Skelton horse eventually finished second and ran pretty well from the rear, but Black Eddie was given a prominent ride and never really looked back, to be honest. And Toby Bolgin was a trainer back in the late 80s, early 90s, and decided to quit training and go off and be a slightly more important figure in London. And he just couldn't make it pay when he was younger. But he's back training again now, and he hasn't got a very big team. It's pretty tiny. But clearly, Black Eddie has been well found, well sought, because he did it really nicely, beat some decently touted individuals, as I say, and it's usually a pretty good bumper, that last one on the Sunday. And I just love the way that he travelled through the race. And the way he went clear, he just always looked like the winner in the home straight, I thought. So I think he's well worth putting in trackers, particularly given the fact he's from that slightly more underrated trainer, or at least lesser known, in Toby Bolgin. And I think it's a pretty shrewd piece of whatever he's done purchasing, and there's no sales information about him. I'm not sure how they came about him, but he's hardly got anything in his pedigree to note at all. He could be a bit of an anomaly, but I think he could be quite good. So Black Eddie is my selection for a horse to follow this week. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, it's probably worth noting as well, the last horse he had that went and bolted up in a bump was sold for 300 grand Poetiza to Willie Mullins. So, I'm sure he'll be in the shop window at some point, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
Plus,
for a trainer like him as well. I mean, if you really want to make it pay with a small team, you get a horse like that, it's probably going to be gone fairly soon. But if they
I'd
do
imagine
keep
so.
it, I hope they do keep it. It'd be great to see what you can do with it.
Yeah, and I'll have to agree with Dan as well. I let him take no chances based on the fact that he was begging me to have it. So I let
That
him
did
have it,
happen, yeah.
but but no, absolutely agree. And hopefully something like the Crawl Cup would be on her agenda. The horse I'm going to go for again is pretty obvious. There's not been, obviously due to not having the rain, there's not been as many performances in the last week or so as we had to discuss the week or so before that. But on Sons Olavi, the horse I put up as one of my horses to follow in the novice hurdle division in the season preview, absolutely bolted up on his hurdle stable. As you'd probably expect, the odds were short. He was up at Market Brazen where he won his bumper. But I like the way he jumped. He made a really novice mistake at the second last. His legs literally went absolutely everywhere. But he managed to find a foot, went down to the last, and you're thinking, oh, speeding up, going down to the last, just made a mistake, and he absolutely pinged it. So that was really pleasing to see. Went and stretched away, scored quite nicely. In typical Twiston Davis fashion style. Sam said after the race that he didn't take a blow there, so they could potentially look at the October meeting with him, which I found very entertaining. That they got the Supreme trial there, but that's on the Friday. I think it would be a 10-day gap between the two. So I'd probably be doubtful. I'd say maybe Mass Man might be the one that ends up going there with that extra couple of days since the Chepstow Friday. But either way, I'd imagine they'll go for the November meeting with him. And they were definitely saying that the Grade 1 Formby is the race for him, this side of Christmas. So that will be an interesting, little target for him. And hopefully he can then, develop into a Grade 1 horse. But I won't be holding my breath that he won't have another 3 runs before Cheltenham after that.
They just can't resist it. They cannot resist a quick turnaround, and
No.
it does look like they've got another good one on their hands, like Potter's Charm last year. I just hope that they've learned from Broadway Boy and from Potter's Charm. Just keep that powder a little bit dry.
No. Well, the October meeting will be a tap-in, so they think, well, we just get all these tap-ins in early doors, and then whatever happens thereafter, it's fine.
It's not a bad strategy. Like you can make it pay more than you can win a Cheltenham race against all
They
of
they
Willys.
certainly do. But it's then when we get round to like February and they're sort of, yeah, he's coming back into the form he showed in one sec. Check October. It's like, well, no, he isn't, is he? That's just not true. He's had 7 runs. But hey, look, it really wouldn't surprise me if we saw him at the October meeting. I'd say it's actually more likely to happen than not. We'll see one of them anyway.
Okay, good. That is the recent notable performance. We're going to go on to the one of the races to look forward to. We're going to have about 6 or 7 of them to discuss. And starting off with the Grand Sefton. Now, this is the only Ante-Post race that we actually have entries for. So I'm just going to go through the betting, at least those at the top of the betting. King Turgeon, has an affinity with the Grand National Fences. He is at the top of the market. Johnny Who, Excello, three card Brag, Gaborio, White Rhino, Beauport, Hitman, Your Darling, Colonel Harry, Our Power, etc. Some very familiar names there. And that is the Grand Sefton market at the moment. Jake, if you had to lean somewhere, where would you be going?
Yeah, it's an interesting market. There's actually not too much experience in the ranks there. I think Excello, King Turgeon, Gaborio, that they're the main type of ones that have run over the fences before. So I wasn't too mad on it. I think King Turgeon, I spoke to David Pipe and he said that it's definitely the race they're going for and they're going to go there fresh, but he is about £10 higher than last year, so that's something to bear in mind. The one I thought was very interesting if turning up here, and connections definitely intimated that it probably would be a target for him, is White Rhino. Um, Now his form always tails off after Christmas. I don't know why it is. It just always seems to happen year on year. Last year he won on his reappearance at Carlisle, and then he won again subsequent to that as well. And then this season, sorry, that was the season before. Then last season, obviously, he won his Chase debut first time up, won again second time up. But after Christmas, ended up going to the Grimthorpe, and he pulled up there where he bled. Now that was off a mark of 141, so I'm hoping he's probably going to be dropped a few pounds when the weights are published for this race. They haven't actually been published yet, but he's not been assessed since the 10th of December 2024, according to the BHA record. So I'd imagine by the time they assess that pulled up and stuff, he'll probably drop a couple down from 141 that he's, currently on. But I think that, this is the type of year where you want, this is the type of season where you want to catch him early doors, get him first time up. Perhaps next, the start after that, you might go up to the Beecher, go up and trip. He'll probably enjoy that as well. But he seemed to really enjoy those stiff fences at Haydock when he won there. And if considering we don't know how he would jump in national fence, you'd have to assume that they probably would suit him on that style. He's a big, rangy horse. You'd imagine he'd be absolutely fine over them. And Oliver Greenhill obviously loves to target this race. He's targeted with a fair few horses down the years. So yeah, I thought White Rhino, I think around 10 to 1 you can get was a decent enough each way play.
Actually, funny enough, looking at that list, he was the one that stuck out to me as well. But I mean, I remember that when I put up Josh Guerriero and Oliver Greenhill as trainers to follow on this podcast a couple of years ago, I think I did it again last year. It was 2 years in a row, and he was definitely one that I had on side for a good while. And I think he is best when he's fresh early in the season. So yeah, I'm with you there, Jake. Could run a big race. Dan, have you got any thoughts on this?
I just love races like this, and it's great that we have entries because you get such a random combination of horses all entered, and you're just thinking, well, you just should never be in the same race as this one. Like it just doesn't make sense. And I do think there's a lot of those mentioned. I mean, I can't see Johnny Who turning up here, surely. Like how
Yeah.
rogue would that be? Like, I mean, it just makes no sense. Free car brag as well. Like, what are you doing here? Like, I mean, just for fun, I guess. So Beauport wants 15 miles. Like Hitman's in here. Colonel Harry's going for the December meeting. So there's loads you can kind of go through and think, well, but you're probably not going to turn up. I think a good starting point is always last year's renewal. It always tends to be a good guide. Obviously, King Churgeon is favourite. As Jake mentioned, he's £10 higher this year. So I think he also had a prep run last year where he bolted up and went under a penalty. So his situation is completely different to what it was. So then you look in behind. I thought Vintage Fizz would probably be the most interesting of those in behind at 20 to 1. So he's not had a very dissimilar preparation if he runs it again this year to what he had last year. It was his first go at Aintree, made up most of the ground from rear, probably the best of those coming from off the pace. He needs good ground, so ground watch for him, but based on what we've experienced recently, there's no reason to expect it won't be decent ground for him. And I think he just comes out best of those who ran in it last year. And one of the a much bigger prize at 33 to 1, if he gets a prep run into him, and that's going to be the key to him, is Twin Jets for Paul Nicholls, who I think is his only entry in the race. And he does have a pretty good record. I think he's won it 3 times in the last 11 or so renewals. I think all come from 2013 to 2018. Now, he does need a comeback run under his belt. Like, he definitely improves that first run back. So he's got a few weeks maybe to find a race, maybe even over hurdles to get him in before that. But, I mean, it's interesting that he's entered. And he would definitely be one of the more unexposed types in here. Needs to go left-handed on decent ground. And you look at that second to Masaccio, just a couple of starts ago now, where he was giving Masaccio £5. He'd now get £12 from Masaccio if they were to meet again. A fracture ended his season early last year, but still very unexposed and running during a time where the Nicholls horses weren't running well. So if they can get a little prep into him and he turns up here, he won't be near the bottom of the betting anyway. He'll be skyrocketing pretty much straight to the top. So I thought he was one of the more interesting ones.
Okay, that's on the 8th of November, the Grand Sefton. over the national fences, of course. And then a week later, we have the Paddy Power Handicap Chase or Paddy Power Gold Cup over 2.5 miles. And at the top of the market is Jaguar. Now, Dan, he's not been seen since the Cheltenham Festival, went absolutely bolting up in the plate last campaign. And he comes here off a £9 higher mark. Surely, though, he's still got a race in him, even off that higher rating band. I mean, he was so impressive, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been brilliant. He's a horse I really enjoy. He's taken his time, and I still think he's got a bit of learning still to do, which is probably the exciting part of him. But yeah, I can definitely see him progressing beyond the stage of handicap sooner rather than later. I'd say that mark 148 is perfectly fine. See, a prep would have been ideal. It looks like they're going to go here fresh. I think 8 of the last 9 all had a prep run. We'd also probably say his run style isn't ideal for the old course. Generally held up, that would be much more a new course tactic rather than an old course if you were to be really picky. But also, you can perfectly understand why he is towards the head of the betting. It just makes perfect sense. And it seems a pretty predictable market at the minute. I mean, Il Rodotto was obviously very well supported thereafter, after his the most blatant prep run a horse has ever had in human history at Chepstow, giving Saint Segal a reason to now be borderline rated 150. That's borderline criminal in of itself, but hasn't been reassessed for that run. But you imagine he'll be on the same mark as he ran at Chepstow. It means only £1 higher than when winning last year. So he's still 12 to 1. That's perfectly fair. Obviously, we're doing this before entries, and I thought, well, if there's going to be one, maybe a bit left field that isn't even priced up anywhere, the Company Sergeant would be an interesting one coming over from Ireland for Gavin Cromwell, just based on his form with Jaguar back in March. Like, they made no secret of the fact they thought he was well handicapped. He ran extremely well. He was back nearly to the point of favouritism against Jaguar. Thereafter, he ran in the Galway Plate, where he didn't really get into it. I think probably a bit better than the Bear result. Then went into the Kerry National recently, just a few weeks ago, where 3 miles, bit of a break, travelled well, got tired late on. I don't think 3 miles is his trip. So I think back to this, a course of this, well, effectively the course, not the exact course, that we know he goes well at, intermediate trip. He'll be better off with Jaguar, certainly, and they pulled pretty clear. I thought he would be one of the more interesting ones should they go this way. And I thought it seemed a pretty obvious target for him.
Okay, I quite like the chance actually of Marble Sands if they deign to go in this direction
You
because
love that horse.
I do
You
love
adore him.
that. I do. I hold my hands up, guilty as charged. I do love that horse. But he was, there is reasoning behind the madness. He was successful on his seasonal return over jumps last season when winning the Colin Parker really well. I mean, it was a pretty impressive win. Saw off Colonel Harry that day. And he's now £4 lower over fences. And he's just had a prep run on the flat at Goodwood. And he actually ran really well to finish second. So I think he'll be bang there fitness wise. Hopefully, he can perform pretty well. I think he's got. I think if they go there, he's going to have a good each way chance. He's around about 16 to 1.
Displays even more why you like him that he's had a run on the flat.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about for you, isn't it? Yeah. Have they had a spin without jumping anything? Yes, therefore Tom Ball likes him. It's just the way things are at the minute.
And what's more is that my horse to follow from the last week won a flat race. So there you go. National Hunt flat race, of course. Okay, Jake, what do you think about the Paddy Power this year?
Yeah, I was saying to Dan, I was spending way too long trying to look for obvious, like, sorry, horses outside of the office that either weren't priced up or could go for the race. I think one of the problems we've kind of got here is a good starting point for trying to find the Paddy Power winner is looking at like the Turners, the old Grade 1 2.5 mile novice chase at the Cheltenham Festival. Have a look into that and see what horses have, not quite been up to Grade 1 level, but ran a decent race in midfield and got a mark in the mid to high 140s that can go for this. We don't have that anymore. Obviously, everything that ran in the novice handicap, you've already seen how they run in handicaps. I didn't think there was anything too exciting to take out of that. If you look at the plate, then I think Jaguar definitely can go and win this despite the rise. I think he's still an improving horse. The Company Sergeant definitely doesn't stay 3 miles, so if he came back to this sort of trip, that would be a positive to him as well. But looking at it, it just does currently look like a pretty obvious market. As Dan mentioned, Il Rodotto last year he got absolutely lapped at Cheltenham. I think he got at Chepstow. Sorry, I think he got beaten about 15 lengths or something like that. And then this year he's obviously only been beaten a couple under a very interesting ride. So even if he wasn't a couple pounds up for that, I'd still think that he would run his race at the race which is always his target. So. The only problem with a horse like Il Risotto is the same as last year. It's kind of a boring selection, isn't it? If he goes and wins, it's a bit of okay. It's just an ordinary handicap rather than a premier handicap that we're excited about from the beginning of September. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what turns up. I thought of the ones that were away from the obvious. I thought if Telepathique decided to go down this route, she could be very interesting. I know, Bully, you'll be very happy to hear that.
Love her. Actually, do you know what? I do love her. I also don't love her because she didn't even run at the end of last year, and that was
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? So she missed the mare's chase, which she was shortening up all the time for. I think she was definitely shorter than 8-1 at one point, wasn't she?
I
She
think she
didn't
was
end up
sec I
running.
think she was second favourite at one stage.
Yeah, she got it really,
One
really
far
short,
off.
didn't she? And you can absolutely see it as well because the way that she won that listed race at Huntington, like she went and beat Bride's Hill and absolutely smashed her out the park as well. So I thought that she would be very interesting off 148 if they decided to come this way. Obviously, her whole season's going to be geared around going back to the Mares Chase and actually getting that run in. But why not try and pick up one of these 2.5 mile handicap chases along the way if you've got that mark? I think she would only have one race like this in her off that topping mark. You know, she won and went up higher than that, then obviously I don't think you'd go handicapped anymore. And obviously the other issue is there's plenty of listed mares races which you can just go for instead. But I thought she'd be interesting if she did turn up here. And another one that I wanted to flag for the Paddy Power is the Kaluki Kid for Nicky Richards. Now I forgot to actually mention this in the recording, so I'm doing this post-edit, but his victory over Saint-Segal in the Musselburgh Scottish Champion Chase is looking very strong now. He's off a mark of 137, which I think makes him very well handicapped. He prefers good ground, so that would be something to keep in mind. But if connections do come here instead of going to the Old Roan, I would definitely be keeping him on side. And then the other one I just wanted to flag, not for this race at all, but for in the future. Dan's already mentioned him as well. Colonel Harry, like if he goes for a race like the December version of this or the New Year's Day version of this, like on soft ground, I think he's definitely got a race like this in him. He's off a mark of 145, I think it is now. The year before, obviously, he was that type of not just not grade one, but that decent novice who can definitely win a handicap at some point. And he was going really well on the New Year's Day version this year before taking a fall. So I think that yeah, the December version or the New Year's Day version, I'll be all over him if it's soft ground.
Well, it's good to hear that, Jake. And as we all know, friend of the channel, Andrew Blair White, gave me a huge amount of stick when I put up Colonel Harry as a horse to follow on this podcast in his novice chase career. Lo and behold, he only just got denied in a grade one. And look at him now. So there you go. Andrew, I hope you're watching and I hope you enjoy.
I'm glad you're over it though.
Yeah.
2 years
I
ago.
don't hold grudges, as you can see. Let's go on to the Greatwood, shall we? And the market looks like this. Celtic Dino at the top, sticks to the plan, McClory and Darby. Helvic Dream, Fiercely Proud, Dysart Enos, Jack Hyde under control. Oddschecker has only got a market with Unibet's the only firm priced up on Oddschecker at the moment. Celtic Dino, well, lads, I hope you were waving your blue and white flags high at
Oi, oi,
Chepstow at the
oi.
weekend. Talking about the World Champion Hurdle. Aye, aye, Jakey, aye, aye.
Yeah, we had our day. We're very, very happy. Unfortunately, his price was a bit short than we would have hoped for. But you know, we had fun and he was definitely fit for his life, wasn't he? Which actually kind of leads me on to the fact that, well, firstly, that you know, his day was clearly the World Champion hurdle, let's not get it wrong. Secondly, after the race, they were kind of talking about the fighting fifth as a potential race to go for before having that mid-season break and coming back for the spring, which would be fair enough. They did it
The
last year, I
lump
think, with
sum route,
lump
isn't it?
sum. Exactly, yeah. So that might be a thing they do, and they might end up not running in the Greatwood. But even if he did run in the Greatwood, a horse that I was very close to putting as my recent performance, but I thought I'd save it for this section instead, is Willful, who obviously finished third behind him at Chepstow. Now, I just thought it was a very, very interesting run because going into the race, they'd already said that his plan was to go for the Welsh champion and then go for the Greatwood. So considering what I've just said about Celtic Dino coming here and it's his absolute day and he's primed for his life, Willful, I think you can probably safely assume that they were leaving a little bit left for him to, you know, to go on to a race like the Greatwood. So that's the first interesting point. The second point is though he travelled up really, really powerfully. Like he was upside Celtic Dino heading down to I think it's either the third last the straights at Chepstow so long I can barely remember which one's which. But at one point he was bang there upside travelling really, really strongly. And then he just started to empty out a little bit when John Dew asked him for an effort. He got in tight to I think it was the second last he got tight into. He allowed Alexi to go past. I think Alexi may have ruined his mark now. He was off 127 that day. He's going to get pretty well punished for coming second. But Willful finished third, started to lose some ground, and then at the finish ran on again. So I'd definitely say he'll come on for the run. I'd say it's hard to put him up too much from his mark of 134 because he was giving £7 to the second. So based on that, probably nudge him up a couple pounds, maybe at the harshest end of the stick. But either way, he's going to be well better off with the weights with Celtic Dino when if they were to reoppose here. So I thought he was very interesting. He's a horse who's not going to worry if we don't get any rain between now and this race. If it stays good ground, he'll be absolutely fine. If we get a bit of rain, I'm sure they'll still want to run him, considering it's been the long-term plan. But he's not actually priced up, which I thought was quite interesting. Considering it's his target, I thought he'd be in there. But yeah, he's definitely a horse I'll be keeping on side, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting thoughts, I have to say, Jake, on Willful and on Celtadino as well. Dan, I'm going to pose a question to you about the Greatwood, and the two words I'm going to put to you are Dysart Enos. Now, she was third in the race last year, and since then she's been a little bit underwhelming, I would say, but has warmed up for this with another run on the flat that came at Kempton. And she's £5 higher than when finishing third last year. My question to you is, do you think there is a handicap in her of this kind of prestige at some point this season?
If she was going to have one, it would have been last year, wasn't it? And we can't do another season of Dysart Enos as the best handicapped horse in training again, can we? I can't be dealing with this again. Like, I half understood the case last year going into it, but I mean, surely she just kind of exposed where her limitations lie by now. What, she's had 5 or 6 goes in
Mm.
these kind of handicaps and come up short every time, quite devastatingly short on most of them. So no, I mean, I know she ran on the flat bully. It's fine. So I get your understanding there, but no, she can run here. She probably will. She wouldn't be for me really. On Willful, his run style will suit the Greatwood definitely. I'm surprised you're as kind of cold on Alexi already after we were quite keen on him as like an interesting one to follow, Jake. I thought you'd be
I think
putting
it's
more on
more the
side with
fact
him.
that he was off 127 and now he's going to have to run in the 130s, which is annoying because if he just waited for a better race, they could have just absolutely hacked up in it. But I guess he wouldn't have been the same sort
Yeah,
of price. But
yeah. We don't obviously we're doing this before they've been reassessed, obviously, as everyone's probably gathered
mm,
by now. But I mean, would he go up more than 4, 5? And Willful would probably go up 2, 3. Like, it was a length of the
yeah,
court,
winner
wasn't it,
winner up
between them?
7 or 8.
Yeah, like I don't think it'll be massive. I mean, still low 130s is I think a very good range for a horse who's having only his second handicap start. So, and he also handled the undulations far better than I almost thought he would. So I'd still be quite keen on Alexi, who was also pretty really that who made up quite good ground from off the pace in a race where it's not always easy to do so. So I'd be keen on him. Like Willful, he's not priced up, but we don't really have a proper market for this yet, do we? It's kind of I think they had a go at this almost looking like it in maybe late July, probably pricing this market up and haven't touched it since based on the prices. So I don't think we can take that market too seriously. A couple of others I thought may be of interest if they did come here on the unexposed side. One would be Castle Carrick. For Alan King, who beat Diva Luna on his hurdling debut. Too keen in the Premier at Kelso, and then not disgraced at all at Aintree over 2.5 miles. He's rated 133. Alan King has won this a couple of times in the past. Now he's bred to want further, but he's still quite a keen type. So I imagine you could almost start him off at a good 2 mile handicap and build up from there. I think he'd be interesting. And then the other one is a horse I mentioned in our season preview, who has definitely got a race like this in him off his mark. I just don't have any faith he's going to turn up, and that's Juby Ball. He's rated 129. I'd be so confident he's much better than that. He's just going to be such a tricky horse to place for them because I don't know if they're going to go straight over fences or they're going to run him in some like 0 to 130 handicap and do nothing with him for a little bit. But I have little doubt he is a horse with a stone in hand. But he's so inexperienced. It's just a case of where he's going to turn up. But if Juby
If
Ball
it was
was to
soft
end up
ground,
winning,
I think he would turn up here, like
I
genuinely.
really hope
But
so.
it's probably odds. Well, it'd be massive odds to get soft ground at the November meeting at this stage, wouldn't it? Unless we get an
Yeah, I
absolute
mean,
deluge.
we'd need a lot of rain. So wherever Jubilee does turn up in a decent handicap off 129, I'm going to be there. So if it is this one, I'll be there as well. But yeah, I don't exactly have the most confidence he'll turn up.
Come on the rain. Come on the rain for Juby Ball. Good stuff. That is the Greatwood cover. We're going to go on to the Betfair Chase now. For the 3 mile and above chases, the classy types. Grey Dawning, Dan, I'll come back to you straight away. 5 to 4. I mean, I know he'd have a very good chance turning up. That's a very short price.
Well, his season just kind of fell apart after this race last year, didn't it? And I do find it short. He's going here, right? That's the plan. It was the plan last year. He's had a year more experience. It was first starting open company last season. I guess you are hoping we don't get rain, aren't you? Really, like so it
Yeah.
wasn't. like it was last year. Like you are kind of hoping for a untraditionally sort of dry haydock, which
Mm.
is a bold guess. I mean, I don't think it's an issue with him not handling soft ground, but it's just you don't almost, and they will be conscious of this, not ruining his season again in one race. So would you really want to be all in on that? And then Coldwell Potter's 4-1.
Yeah.
That seems like the most likely, but again, they want to ruin two horses in the same race. So it's a bit of a strange conundrum, this market. And then you've got Nick Rocket. Oh, I can't really imagine, even if he turns up here, is going to be firing up. And I imagine it's going to be all roads back to Aintree. So are we just living in a world where yes, he's 11, but Raw per guy at 10-1 is just, if you're going to have a bet, has to be the bet because like he's going to run here, like it's his day, like
And
all
you
the
know
others.
he'll be tuned up for his life as
Yeah,
well.
he
Yeah.
won't win anything else after this. This is probably his last chance at a real big pot again. And if it does rain, he's the one. It won't go off favourite still if Grey Dawning runs against him, but it was the same case last year. He'll be tuned to the minute for it. It's his big day in the sun, and everything else in here after Roar Pagaille, you have serious questions about whether they turn up. Like Haiti Kalor's season depends entirely on what happens at Wetherby in the Charlie Hall. So possible, but we'll see with him. He might just end up being a top handicapper and maybe running into something like the Gold Cup. Then you've got Majbra's priced up. Okay, sure, let's go with that. Anyone taking the 12-1, I'd love to have a minute in your brain to see what's going on in there. Ile Francais, stage star, is retired. He's still priced up. And then you're just into a host of horses you really struggle to see turning up, realistically. So is it just Raw Pagaille at 10-1? Is that just what this race is?
Go on, Jake. Do you agree?
Uh, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to be back in Raw per guy at 10-1 right now, to be honest with you. But it could end up being the bet come the day, that's for sure. This race, I'm going to say it, looks absolutely dreadful based on the current market that we've got. As Dan mentioned, Grey Dawning is clearly a deserving favourite. You wouldn't want it to be as soft as last year just for those concerns. But if it's not, then you'd obviously have a good chance. The fact that Caldwell Potter was so short, like I mused about him being close to my horse to forget. I'm kind of glad I didn't now because he actually would have a decent enough chance in a race like this if it is just Grey Dawning to beat. It's just absolutely crying out for a big Irish Raiders come across and land the pot, really, isn't it? Because right now those British lot look pretty average, and yeah, I mean when you've got Nick Rocky in at 7-1, that says quite a lot about the race, to be honest. Because as Dan said, the national is going to be his target. I don't see him as a Grade One, improver that is going to start landing this. And is he even going for the race? Has someone said he's going for the race? Is that why he's so short? I have literally
No idea.
need to have a look at that one, to be honest. But yeah, like we need something like I know the way you're thinking to just come here and absolutely shit up because
Yeah. Empty the tank in the Betfair Chase. Yeah, that would seem likely. A likely target for him. Yeah.
I can envisage a two or three runner race. To be honest, I mean
could be, yeah.
they'll probably be 5 or 6. They usually are, but yeah.
What else got? I mean, look at the. What else got? I mean, with Gentleman's Game unlikely to come over, he'd be one you could see. Like he's not your top class Irish horse who might just spot an easier opportunity. Had a series of decent thirds last year and bumping into the top class ones. He could turn up potentially. I think Handstands won't. They've got a patient plan for him. Jello won't probably. Fast or Slow won't. MC Gardens isn't even in training currently. Monty Starr maybe. Like he's running. But again, I think
That's a shout. That is a shout. Yeah.
I think he might go for the national though. I think they'll campaign his season around the national.
I feel like the Betfair Chase would be a race that would suit him, though, actually, that kind of test.
Well, because he's big and slow and can't
Pretty
win a
much.
decent grade one. Yeah.
Yes.
That would probably be, yeah, exactly. I mean, L'Empresse, yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't really know where he's at the minute, to be quite honest, with L'Empresse. But also, we've also got Rob Pagaille, so that'll be his day. So I don't know what they'll do with L'Empresse. So there's so many questions with this race as who turns up, which is part of the
It
problem.
would be interesting
Great
if
fun to
Willie did
discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be interesting if Willie came across with one because obviously he traditionally doesn't, but this year he does seem to be having a much bigger emphasis on trying to, maybe not win every single pot before Christmas, but he's having a lot more runners than usual. He's going to
Lecky?
go send one to semi. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Lecky Watson this could be his type of race that he could actually go and win in Grade One level. But
He could,
again, he's got the national on his agenda as well, hasn't he? So
yeah. Oh,
Every horse got the national on the agenda.
See,
Yeah.
this is why, look, we're doing Ante-Post for literally a month and a week's time, and this is already scratching our heads. To the people doing it for March already, God bless. You are braver men than me.
Oh, I love it. It's all good stuff. We're going to head on to the Fighting Fifth. I think we've got more of an idea who's going to run in that, don't we, than we do the Betfair Chase. The top of the market, the New Lion. Constitution Hill is going there for Nicky Henderson. Amsterdam is a very interesting runner if he turns up. Golden Ace Cargese, or Cargase, Burdett Road, Hello Neighbor, Ponyross, Lump Sum, and a few others in there. Tell her the name. Don't run that horse in that race again. Please. But Jake, yeah, we should have more of a clearer picture, I think, about who's actually going to go to Newcastle.
Yeah, this is one I think you can get a bit more stuck into now, to be honest. And as you said, it's much more manageable. We know the horses that are going to be going there. And the one that I'm most excited for is the one that Willie's announced is going there in the last week or so is Amsterdam. Um, unfortunately, he's broken down to art already by not going novice chasing. But
What a
beside
snip he
that
would have been at
fact,
33s for the Arkle. My God. Oh well, he'll win the champion instead.
yeah. But beside that fact, obviously the new Lion's gone in a 6-4 fab. He's going to start off here for the Skelton team. I don't have any massive things against him here. I think it's interesting he's only ever ran over 2.5 miles in his life over hurdles, and he'd be dropping back to 2 miles for the first time in an open company grade one, which actually looks pretty decent. I can't imagine they thought it would look this good when they first plotted this as the race for starting him off in. So I think at that price, you definitely got to take him on. I can't see him getting much shorter than that, to be honest, if everything does turn up. So I definitely wouldn't be an anti-post play, that's for sure. If it comes a day and he's the only one in there, then yeah, fair enough. But Constitution Hill is then next in. I mean, if you're backing him now anti-post, you'd want a price on him turning up for the race first, wouldn't you, before you even get to the race? And then when you get to the race, you'd probably want to see how he runs before ever backing him and parting with your cash again anyway. So I think he's one you just have to leave. If he goes and wins, then it's great for the game, to be honest, let alone anything else. But yeah, Amsterdam is just surely the bet at these prices. You can get 4-1, even the 3-1. I'd say is a good bet against the field. Connections have already said this is the plan. They're going to get him ready, obviously, for this. They wanted to see if he's a champion hurdle horse. Last year, I think it's almost a blessing in disguise that he missed the champion hurdle because obviously he's still only a 5-year-old, but Willie Mullin said at the time after winning his second Grade 3 of the season that he thought that the champion hurdle would come too soon for him. So it just saved the ag of him being a non-runner in that race really. Ended up obviously missing the rest of the campaign. But he's back, he's in training. As I said, he's going to be absolutely primed for it. And the way that he returned on seasonal debut last year and absolutely destroyed Carl Conti on his first Irish start, I can never get that out of my head. I think he's a very, very talented horse. And yeah, hopefully he can make up into a champion hurdle horse. I'm sure they'll want to test the new Lion, that's for sure, to see just how good he compares to the rest of their string.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, I mean, if I had to get my crystal ball out and suggest what the market might be come the day, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was a New Line 6-4, Amsterdam 7-4, and then
Yep.
Connie Hill, if he's there, as you say, he might not even get there, around about a 3-1, 7-2 shot. I reckon the money is really going to come for Amsterdam. And yeah, that 3-1, 4-1 that you can get now might be looking very tasty come the day. Dan, what are your thoughts on the race?
Echo a lot of that. Yeah, I can see Amsterdam going off favourite if he turns up here. I really can. I think there'll be a wave of momentum behind him. I think artificially the new line is probably a bit too short for every race that you can currently back him for, isn't he? So I think that momentum will shift eventually towards Amsterdam, who I said I was a big fan of. Why is he not jumping a fence? I don't know, but no, I would be a fan of his. I think 4-1 is a very fair price, but this could genuinely be the race of the season. When you look at, we build up to Cheltenham all the time, but when you actually go into a race like this, you'd have the champion hurdle favourite in the new line, having his first start in open company. You would have Constitution Hill on the comeback after failing to really complete with any meaningful purpose on his last 3 starts, on a bit of a comeback mission again. You'd have Amsterdam, the great unknown, always hailed as a great talent. Can he now finally do it in a real proper race? And you might even have Golden Ace, who is the reigning champion hurdler, all turning up. So there's all these kind of unknown variables right at the start of the season, the proper grade 1. Like come March, you'll have a lot of answers to all the questions we might have here. So I think it'll be the race of the season if we all get all of those 4. And I'd be Team Amsterdam, especially at 4-1.
And just
Oi,
quickly,
oi.
yeah, all aboard, all aboard the Amsterdam bus. Right, let's go on to the Coral Gold Cup show, which the next race we're going to discuss. And there's a market there at the moment: Martown, Haiti, Couleur, Iroko, Spanish Harlem. Masaccio, Jinko Blue, Katate Dor, I should say, Captain Cody, the Changing Man, Ask Brewster, Resplendent Grey, Grey Dawning, Fontaine Allonge, etc., etc. All these familiar names, all these wonderful handicappers. The Coral Gold Cup. Jake, come back to you. Obviously, we're quite a way off this race at the moment. Who do you expect to be taking a prominent position in that race?
Yeah, well, Meartown's making the market. Obviously after his Ultima win, I remember being against him in the Ultima, thinking that he needed a small field and he had to dominate. Instead, he just dominated a big field. But I think now he's £15 higher, and connections, other connections know what he's going to do. I don't think he'll get that easy lead and be able to dominate like he was that day. So I'd probably steer clear of him for now. As I said, especially with that £15 rise, you just don't know how much improvement he's got left in him. As impressive as he was. I think this race though it's kind of it's like it seems to be a bit of a theme when going through all the races. All these big races that we have such expectations of being strong, big handicaps full of, unexposed novices don't seem to be happening as much these days. The Paddy Power didn't look as strong as usual. The Greatwood definitely didn't. The Coral Gold Cup here doesn't really either, to be honest. There's not anything that exciting. And for that reason, I thought that Resplendent Grey actually probably could be a horse that's still on the up. He's around 16 to 1, which I think is a very fair price for starters, considering it's going to be his target. He's going to start off in the Colin Parker Memorial at Carlisle on the 2nd of November before running here. That's obviously a very tried and tested route down the years. But the way that he won the Bet365 really did impress me because I think, well, definitely myself, I think we've spoken it before as well, Dan, that I kind of had a bit of attitude worries about him. I didn't know if he quite
I've
wanted
never
to go
liked
through
him.
with it all the time. Yeah, he's always been a bit of an. I mean, he was very oddly campaigning as a novice chase as well. It's worth remembering. He was running over 2.5 before running in the National Hunt Chase over 3 miles 6, which is a bit of a questionable campaigning. But I just thought that he had the first time cheek pieces on at Sandown. He really knuckled down and went through with a race for the first time. And he's only £5 higher. That was off a mark of 142, where he beat 5 Willie Mullins horses, I think it was that day. He's now up to 147, which I think is perfectly within reach. I just thought that at 16 to 1, he's the type of horse is going to run his race. If as long as those cheap pieces keep on doing the job, he's still only a 7-year-old as well, is worth remembering. If he can just keep improving, then 147 could be within his reach. And 3 mile 2 furlong, I think is just the ideal trip for him. I don't think he wants it any shorter. I don't think he wants it too much longer. So yeah, I thought that he was a very interesting horse for Ollie Murphy, who's obviously absolutely lighting up all these Premier Caps at the moment.
Yeah, certainly is. Resplendent Grey for the resplendent Jake Price. And Dan, what are your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, it's always good. As you say, Jake earlier, so you're not getting all these exposed types. I mean, we had sort of Can Do Kid and Broadway Boy, and for as much as I love
Yeah.
both of them, they wouldn't exactly be the types you think, oh, but they're going to really kick on into being absolute top notches, are they? So I think it is developing a bit more into a handicappers race in recent seasons. I did have a couple of larger prices that I just can't help myself. Lowry's Bar is there at 33s,
Yeah.
and oh, he's just a heartbreaker, isn't he? He's definitely better earlier in the season. He's tailed off now twice in later on, and
Do you think he jumps well enough
was
for a race like that?
I think he jumps fine in the main. Obviously, he made that one error at Windsor, and then at Kempton on quick ground, he shouldn't have been in that race ever. Anyway, that was just poor race planning, as we knew, and he bled as well. So I'll forgive him that. 148, I don't think is a gift, but I do think Newbury will definitely suit him, and he'd be one of the sort of unexposed second season chasers in here where there aren't all that many. The other
Yeah.
one is 40 to 1 currently is Cruise Control, who I think would be very interesting in a race like this if there was a go here. Now, he's probably more known as an Aintree specialist because he's won that twice, but he's still very unexposed generally as a 3 mile handicapper. Like, he's had 5 runs in 3 mile 1 handicap chases in his career. He's won 3 of them, was 4th at Punchestown after a long season, and he pulled up over Christmas time where the yard was struggling, and the yard admitted at Aintree, like, they just didn't have him right whatsoever. So we don't really know where his limitations are exposed just yet. He's very tactically versatile. He can make the running. He can be held up. It doesn't seem to matter. He's ground versatile. And the yard have begun this season in unbelievable form, particularly compared to last year. So I think there's still a lot of room to manoeuvre with cruise control off 143. He only went up £4 for winning at Aintree. To win a Spring handicap and only got £4 is, I think, fairly lenient. And I don't see any reason why I wouldn't like Newbury. Like, you look at his runs at, say, Newcastle, big galloping left-handed track, has won there a couple of times. Aintrie's a bit sharper, but also left-handed, not too dissimilar in configuration. I think he'd be fascinating. And in the build-up to Aintree, they talked about potentially like they'd scored him over Aintree fences. Now, off 143, he's not going to get in to the Grand National if they want to go for the Grand National. He's 8 going on 9. He's going to have to win a part or go up a bit more to get into a Grand National now. It wouldn't surprise me if we see him even go there fresh or have a prep run over hurdles and go for this. I think 40-1 would be a good price at this stage.
Yeah, 2 big prices for you there, Dan. Lowry's Bar and Cruise Control. Good stuff. Finally, it brings us on to the King George. And a little bit of this race, or the market for this race, is going to be determined by how Grey Dawning gets on in the Betfair Chase beforehand. At the moment, the market looks like this. Gaelic Warrior, Factor File. I know where you're thinking. Galopin de Champs probably won't go there. Il est Francais, Fast or Slow, Banbridge, Django Bay, the Jukebox Man, John Bon, Corwell Potter, etc., etc. Gaelic Warrior, top of the market, Dan. Is that about right, do you think?
Talk about races like the Fighting Fifth that could be races of the season. This could be one of the best King Georges of all time.
We say this every year.
I know. But look at the list. Like, the Fad de File, Gaelic Warrior, basically joints. They both look like they might run. Il est Francais, just to be yourself, go out in front, then check out after 2 miles. That would be fun. Fast or Slow on the comeback trail. He broke my heart last year as we all had a good price about him and he got injured, but he looks like he's going back for it. Banbridge, the Jukebox Man, is a massive price for considering he's probably going to go here. Heartwood, as of today, looks like he might come here. Like, those are a lot of good horses all coming to the same race and a lot of water to flow under that proverbial bridge before we get here. So in a weaker year, I would love to back Jello at 66s, but I can't bring myself to do it while there's so many good horses in the race. If a couple of them start to go a bit astray, I probably will back Jello at 66-1 if that price holds. But
more than a couple are going to have to go astray for that, I think, Dan.
Well, I backed Hewick at 50s, so it happens. So it's absolutely they don't. Well, I've started this season of such poor form, bar Celtic Dino. I need to remember good wins. It could be a classic. But I can't get too excited about it being so because, as you mentioned, it never happens. Not a betting opinion because there are so many variables, but I do think you look at something like the Jukebox Man and the way he's 16s, like it will be his main target, really. You've got to think before the Ryanair is the way they've talked. And just knowing how these things have gone in the past, you wouldn't exactly be certain on the front two to turn up.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, I'd be massively keen on 16-1 about the Jukebox Man. I mean, he was so good last year before injury curtailed this season. Jake, what about you? Final thoughts on the King George?
Yeah, as Dan said, it really depends what turns up, doesn't it? Like, if the front two go, it will be unbelievable. So if it's Gaelic Warrior versus Factor File, I think I'd probably just about lean Factor File out the two, but obviously it would be a great race between them. If it's only one or the other, I think they'd both be very hard to beat in isolation as a fav, out in front. The one I do find very fascinating, though, is Fast or Slow, if they can get him back, because, as Dan mentioned, he was laid out for the race last year. Unfortunately, he got that injury and ended up missing it all. But if he can come back and be the same type of horse he was, when he giving Galopin de Champs good races, then he's certainly got a race like this within him. And what was he currently, like 14-1 or something? Yeah, 14-1. Like that is a big price if you knew he was getting to the race. So. Yeah, he'd be the one I'd be most interested in. I'd probably only realistically be interested in that much, though, if both of the front, or at least one of the front two didn't run. If both of them are there, then probably not going to go near anything else in the field. If one of them's there, then they'll probably end up being too short and potentially you can go for something like that each way. But if neither of them went, he would have an unbelievable winning chance if he comes out the same horse.
Really enjoyable discussion, actually, about what we might have to look forward to. And I think some nice each-way selections as well. So good stuff, boys. I think next week we're going to be back with the weekend preview, Jake. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Cheltenham's back next week. So we've got the Friday and the Saturday of the October meeting. We'll see when we can do a recording, but we'll get it out on Thursday either way. And yeah, hopefully we can get back to winning ways.
Yes, indeed. Fingers crossed. Please do remember to like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us out. 200 likes would be amazing this week. And if you'd like, comment down below with your own Ante-Post fancies for the next few weeks and months. We would love to hear from you as always, and usually you put down some fairly interesting ones to follow. So
one caveat on that is all pre-Christmas or pre-New Year. I don't want to see any sort of no festival chat just yet. All pre 31st of December, please. That's what it's all about at the minute.
Quite right, quite right. Join Dan overall with Cruise Control, who knows? Let us know what you think. And yeah, next week we're back for Cheltenham. So please join us then for more of The Jump Show.